Hello, everybody. Welcome to the School of Business ProfessionalQuest event. This is our consulting and HR panel. We're very excited. We have a really awesome panel for you this afternoon. Students, can you please make sure that you're on mute? And if you have any questions, please drop the questions in the chat and we'll make sure Kelly Coughlin, who is our moderator for today, will get those questions to the panelists. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly. And again, thank you to our wonderful panel. And students, please, if you have questions, these people are here to talk to you. They're not here to talk to us. So make sure that you drop those questions in the chat. Thank you so much, Kelly. And I'll turn it over to you now.
Okay, hello and welcome everyone. Glad to see we have such an awesome turnout for today. I'm Kelly Coughlin. I'm the Career Services Manager at the School of Business. So I'm sure I've seen many of you for resume reviews and whatnot. So I am happy to have our panelists here today. We are going to get into it. We're talking about consulting and HR. What traits make a good person for those roles? What background should we be looking at? What certifications would enhance our resume in that area? And then how the heck did these people get there? So I am going to go ahead and direct questions. I will have a few for you, and then we will have time to check for questions at the end. So like Carrie said, please go ahead and drop your questions in the chat and we will get to them then. So let's start out. We're going to start with Sherry. Everyone, I go one by one here, but I want you to introduce yourself, talk about what you do, and maybe if you could get into the weeds just a little bit on what does a day in life look like, right, for your current job. We all know maybe what it looks like in a written up job description, and of course, that can vary significantly from what that looks like in our daily lives. So I would like each of you to talk about who you are, where you are, and a little bit about how you got there and what do you do. So let's go ahead and start with Sherry at Serco.
Okay, well, first off, thank you for having me. And I'm really excited about talking to the team here and look forward to all the questions. So yes, as was said, I work for Serco North America. We're an international company. We primarily deal in the Department of Defense, although, you know, the other civilian agencies is certainly part of our portfolio of services. Now, the organization that I have is a little bit unique, and I have the great honor of, and we'll I hopefully get into this, of leading a group of about 175 awesome consultants. And so what does that really mean? These consultants, you know, are a little different in that, you know, when you first start off, you're probably going to be supporting one project. So a day in the life for us is each consultant supports multiple projects across multiple customers simultaneously. And then what makes it even more interesting is they're at various levels. You know, like I retired from the federal government in a very senior leadership position. It's not uncommon for me on any given day to roll up my sleeves, get my hands dirty, and just do, you know, what I would call, you know, tactical grunt work. And then the next project later on, a couple hours, I may be doing something very strategic and very thoughtful. So a lot of diversity. You have to be really, you know, agile. Being able to pivot to support different customers on different projects. And that's what keeps our workforce really motivated and really excited, because it's a constantly changing environment, if you will. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's perfect. And then we'll circle back and then talk a little bit more in detail about how did you get there, right? What did your own path look like? As we all can probably attest to, we're not all necessarily doing what we thought we'd be doing in 9th grade, right? We maybe, you know, did a little of this. So we'll come back and kind of circle back and talk a little bit more of that. But thank you, that was perfect. Let's go on to Nomi.
Hi, pleasure to talk with everybody today. I am a VP of Human Resources at Eagle Bank, and everything is sort of the opposite or a very different side from Sherry. So I'm HR rather than a consultant. I'm embedded in the company. I have a team of 5 people for our regional group, but I just focus on the talent management side of human resources. So that's recruiting and employee relations. And within employee relations, it's both the positive stuff and the negative stuff. I've been doing HR for 30 plus years. Many of my positions have been head of various departments, global companies, nonprofits, quite an array of different industries, but the common thread consistently has been HR. And with this most recent job change, I joined the bank 15 months ago, was because I really wanted to dig into the part of the job that was my first love in human resources, which was the recruiting side. And so my daily day-to-day activities do vary dramatically on a day-to-day basis. I work a hybrid schedule and I'm in the office Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and then remote Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you caught me on one of my remote days. The way that I choose to divide up my days is when I'm in the office, I do more focus on doing the actual interviews, having meetings with people, whether they're online meetings or in-person meetings, but I make my Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, the more social, extroverted, interactive days. And then my Tuesdays and Thursdays are my days to do project work, strategic thinking, to really drill down to what needs to get done and what needs to be thought about to get done, which is very different than the tactical Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Sure. All right. Well, thanks. We're happy to have you. I'm going to move on to Mitchell.
Thanks. Hey, everybody. My name is Mitchell Cho. I am the president and CEO of Fed Writers. We are a local company here in Fairfax. I'm actually a Mason alum myself. Yeah, so we are a federal contractor. We support more than 50 different federal agencies. We have about 200 employees in the company. We're growing pretty quickly. We were on the Inc. 500 list a couple years in a row. Number 146 was our best ranking. And we really support the range of the federal government, the full scope of science-based agencies such as NASA and NOAA and the National Science Foundation, defense agencies such as the Marine Corps and the Space Force and the Army War College, as well as a lot of civilian agencies, including the Department of Transportation and the Department of Education and the Department of the Treasury. Yeah, so for example, for NASA, one of our programs is we manage all their public inquiries, where we respond to about 20,000 public inquiries that NASA receives per month. Questions from the public about like specific scientific missions, or we get a lot of questions from children asking how they could be an astronaut someday. For NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, we do a lot of professional and scientific services in support of like climate research. We work with their Office of Oceanic and Atmospheric Research. For the U.S. Army War College, we do a lot of proofreading and editing of their kind of scholarly publications. So yeah, so we have a range of people in the company, obviously a lot of writers and editors, but we also have a lot of analysts, graphic designers. We do a lot of FOIA work, Freedom of Information Act responses. So yeah, and I could tell you a little bit more about how I started the company, but I guess I'll save that for later.
Okay, and I really appreciate you touching on something that we're going to circle back to, because I feel that what I see is a lot of folks not realizing in any of these companies, there are multiple roles. So even if you're looking at, let's say, an accounting firm, it doesn't mean that they don't have marketing people. It doesn't mean that they don't also have business managers. They're not just solely hiring accountants. And as you're kind of speaking to, when you're talking about, we have graphic designers and stuff. So somebody might see the title of the company and, start getting that tunnel vision, but really it's so much more broad. So I'm really happy that you brought that up.
Yeah, just real quick, touching about what Sherry said, we have a lot of recruiters on the call. In our company, that's a big part of what we do is we recruit for these contracts. So, yeah, that's definitely right about what you said. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, and last but not least, Nicole, thanks for joining us. If you want to kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Lekas. I am the U.S. HR manager at Bayer International, which is a market research customer experience company or firm. And when I first started, I only started 6 weeks ago, so I'm still new myself at the organization. I had no idea what that meant. So for those of you who might also not be sure what that means, it is looking at the customer experience. So clients hire us to see what people think about their brand, about their company, about their style, whatever it may be. People ask, we do everything from looking at car washes to Blue Nile, what was people's experience shopping or, that kind of thing. So it's pretty cool. I have to say, I had no idea mystery shoppers still existed, but they are alive and well. If anyone's ever interested in being an evaluator for us, please let me know. It sounds like it's a pretty cool gig. But I am the US HR manager, as I said. And so what I do is I oversee about 55-ish employees we have in the US. So I wear all the HR hats. I am at the HR department of one. We are currently hiring for an HR assistant, a finance and HR assistant. So I know Carrie was helping me get the word out about that. So if anyone's interested in learning more about that position, please let me know. But yeah, so I do everything from recruiting to terminations, and I love it.
Real quick, while I still have you, a question did pop up. What is a mystery shopper?
Ah, good question. Good question. Should have thought of that one. A mystery shopper is someone, the way I explained it to my stepdaughter, who's 11, is they're a spy, which then I told my boss what I said, and they're like, actually, that's pretty fair. So it's someone who goes in the guise of a normal shop or a normal experience, for example, going through a car wash, but they are actually observers of whatever the client wants to track. So if the client wants us to look at cleanliness of the facility, friendliness of the customer service reps, quality of merchandise and the way it looks. I mean, anything they want, we are able to find the market research for them and the customer experience information. So we also do many other things such as surveys and audits and but the most fun in my opinion is doing mystery shopping. It just sounds like, you don't get to wear a cool spy outfit or a ninja outfit or anything, but you get to go be a spy.
Love it. Perfect. Thank you. All right, so we're going to circle back and kind of talk about our backgrounds. So what did we focus on when we were in school? What did we think we would end up doing? And kind of what was that path that, as I mentioned, is not always a direct pathway up or in the direction we thought it would be. So Nicole, since I still have you, we'll go ahead, we'll do this reverse and we'll start with you. So what did you study? How did you even hear about this? And, was this what you always wanted to do?
Well, to answer your question in the shortest way possible is when I was in college, I loved what Mitchell had to say. I wanted to be an astronaut. So I studied astrophysics for several years and then realized that math was not my forte and moved into psychology and criminology is what I eventually graduated with as my degrees and thought I wanted to be a forensic profiler and then realized that was not the path I wanted. So when I came out of college, it was one of those first place to offer me a job is where I'm going to go, just given the economy and everything. And I started as a customer service rep at a consulting firm, actually, and helped build their customer service group. So we called it the Member Support Center. It was for for-profit consulting firm, best practice firm. And so I built that from the ground up. I then went in to become an analyst with them. So I was the consultant supporting controllers and chief accounting officers. So people who did accounting. Did that for a number of years, then went to become a business manager at a nonprofit. I unfortunately got let go from the consulting firm and then had to find a new path. So I started volunteering around and was volunteering at an organization, a nonprofit organization, and they asked me to come on as an employee. So I did. That was all finance, business management, finance. Started bringing in the director of operations left. This was totally stroke of fate. And so they were like, we don't have any HR. What do you know about HR? And I said, well, I can learn. And so I started taking more and more of the HR responsibilities on my plate, discovered that I loved it, and then proceeded to go find an organization. I moved, organizations to some place that could support me growing in HR, continued to grow and grow and grow. And now I decided, well, I don't want to do finance anymore because I was doing finance and HR, as well as legal, IT, office management. It was a small nonprofit. You wear like 10 million different hats. You look like the Mad Hatter eventually. But then went on to my current organization because I knew I wanted to focus just on HR. And so have the opportunity to support a much larger team, but only focusing on one thing, which is kind of exciting.
I love that. And that I think that is so, I'm sure when we hear from others too, that does tend to be kind of our pathway, right? And I also think it's really great for the students to hear too, because obviously there's a ton of pressure to just pick that exact right major. And, if you don't pick the exact right one, then you're on this path and you might be unhappy and all this kind of stuff. And really that is not the case. And Nicole, I think that was a perfect demonstration of that, is you just you can go any number of directions with that willingness, volunteering.
Yep.
You're working in a nonprofit organization, they will snatch you up given the opportunity if they have those positions opening as well. So
exactly. And going from nonprofit to for profit, that my current job is for profit, like there's just so many different options out there. And I tell people now when I mentor, just get a college degree. It really doesn't matter what it's in. You're learning how to adult, you're learning how to, view the world from that view. And I don't do a thing with my college degree like classes at this point. So,
right.
But it still taught me a lot.
Right. Exactly. Perfect. Mitchell, what was your path to get where you are?
Yeah, so I went to Mason and I got a degree in what they call government and politics back then. I don't know if they changed the name of it, but I wanted to be a lawyer, actually. That was kind of my path, but I realized I probably wasn't smart enough to be a lawyer. But I could always write pretty well. I could always write those term papers really well, research papers. And, after college, I got a job as a technical writer for government contractors for the Coast Guard. Right? I had no idea what government contracting was. And for those of you who may not be familiar, right, the government procures all their services, right? It's not all government employees that do all the work of the federal government. It's by and large contractors, companies that hire people to do that work for the government. So I was helping the Coast Guard do regulations, right? Basically regulations for boating safety or various types of other things that the Coast Guard regulates. And I realized I was always wondered how in the world did this company I work for, how did they get this contract? It was like a $25 million contract. And then I realized, oh, they wrote a proposal in response to an RFP, a request for proposal. That's how they got this work. And I was like, wow, I really want to do that. So I spent the next couple of years really trying to figure out how the procurement process works, how the government, issues these small business set-asides that are bids that only go to small businesses and 8A businesses and women-owned businesses and things like that. And really how to write a good proposal. What goes into a good proposal? How do you price a proposal? What does the government do when they select the winning proposal, the winning bid? So I after that job, I got a job as a proposal manager for another company, and they had a lot of success. Basically, they went from like 30 people to over 200 people based on kind of a lot of the bids that I wrote, a lot of the proposals that I wrote. So after that, I kind of learned to perfect this craft of proposal writing, and I became a consultant, a proposal consultant, where I would help other companies write their proposals. That's kind of where the name Fed Writers came from. Originally, it was a proposal consulting company. So I'd work with pretty large companies like Leidos. I'm sure I've heard of that company, SAIC, CSC, a lot of small to mid-sized companies. I'd help them write their proposals as well. And, I like to think that I became really good at writing proposals. So I just kind of ended up writing proposals for my own company, Fed Writers. And the interesting thing about that is the very first piece of work that I won was the very same Coast Guard contract that I started my career off of. It was about 12 or 13 years later after that fact. So it all is full circle. So yeah, I mean, and that's really the key to all this in my mind is being able to write good proposals. And that's kind of where I found my success.
Okay, perfect. That was so funny. That was full circle indeed. Nomi, Let's know
Yeah.
about you.
So I went to the University of Massachusetts, got a degree in hotel, restaurant, and travel administration. Had absolutely no question in my mind I was going to be going into restaurant management, food production, something in that arena. I'm going to sidestep for 1 second. Fast forward, my son graduated from Indiana University in food anthropology. And if that had existed as a thing when I was a student, I would have absolutely done food anthropology because it was just the coolest thing ever. So I graduated from college and I went to work for a hotel, and I went through their training program, which is a phenomenal intro, I think, into HR, because you're learning the business from all the different sides of the business. And one of the best tips for HR is to truly be a business partner, regardless of what role you have in the company. The more you understand the business, the better you can serve the business. So doing my rotations, my second to last rotation was in HR. My last rotation was intended to be the restaurant, with a position being held for me to go in and become the restaurant manager. So in my second to last rotation, towards the end of a year, I'm on day 2 of my HR run, and it was like the sky opened up and the angels were singing and I found home. It was this total epiphany of everything that I loved about hotel management and the diversity of people and serving people and providing customer service and meeting their needs. And instead of doing it for a customer, I was doing it internally for the employee, and I was in love. So I continued in hotel HR management for the next number of years, and then I had a family relocation that I needed to do. And so I surveyed friends, colleagues, as many people as I could. And I said, am I a hotel manager working in HR, or am I an HR manager working in a hotel? And everyone said HR. So that became the pivot point for my career. So I went from hotel to liquor distribution. So I had the food to beverage, then liquor distribution to furniture distribution. So I went from distribution to distribution. At one point, I worked for a sophisticated engineering company. Then I went to a nonprofit. I worked for a data center doing technology, and now banking. So talk about an incredible variety of different industries. And the common thread always was people are people, and they need to be treated with respect and with dignity, and they need to feel valued. And so all the things that I got from the very beginning carried through, even though I'm not in a hotel and I'm not doing food management anymore.
All right, perfect.
No.
And Sherry.
So first off, I'm intrigued by everyone's experiences, and hopefully I'll end with how, if you're listening to this, how you can tie it all together. But I took a different route. Well, no, like Mitchell, I graduated from James Madison University in Virginia. I'm an Army brat, and we just happened to end up here when I was getting ready to go to college. And I graduated, and I was going to be a rock star attorney. I mean, I was on my way. I was going to go do that. And then I took the LSATs. And I'm not so sure, although my parents told me English was my native language, I bombed the LSATs. I mean, I graduated with high honors, so I'm thinking, oh, this is a cakewalk. I'll slide right on into Harvard, and there we go. Well, as soon as I got my scores, I wasn't going to go into any law school, I don't think. So then I was wondering, well, what am I going to do? And I did do something kind of related. And, it's funny because if you could see me, I'm not a very big person at all. So I went and I was a cop. I was a really intimidating cop for about a year. Did a little bit of career planning consultants, right before I was a cop, and they always said, follow your passion. And that's going to be a theme that you're going to hear from me, is follow your passion. What are you really emotionally invested in? And so they let me go do that for a year. And so I went, played cop for a year, had a great time, make no money. But still, the mission is either you believe in that or you don't. And I felt, I was very wedded to that. The career planning consultant stuff I loved. I moved like every 2 months. And at some point, even in my early 20s, I just wanted to settle for a little while. And so I went the federal government route. I retired. I was 30 years with the federal government negotiating shipbuilding contracts. So I was on the receiving end of reading those proposals. And then I worked my way up from being kind of the technician, the contract specialist, just helping understand how federal contracts are awarded, how you can write a compelling and compliant proposal so you can get that contract. But these were all for ship design and new construction, maintenance and overhaul of just about every surface ship with the exceptions of nuclear carriers. And so I worked my way up, and I can remember the day. And now this is I'm going back a while here, but so kind of fast forward to the time value of money today. The very first contract that now I'm awarded contracting officer that I could sign was $867 million, just my signature. And it was like, how cool is that? And I figured I was going to do that forever. And just negotiate shipbuilding contracts here in DC, and I loved it. You know, the responsibility was enormous. You know, that me, you know, at a pretty young age had that kind of authority. And another theme that you'll hear that's kind of related but not is, and then I had mentors my entire career, and my mentor said, you need to branch out. You need to branch out and go diversify. And I was like, I don't want to diversify. You know, so I thought I was being really slick. And so I applied for SES jobs, Senior Executive Services. You know, some people, I'm not really advocating this, but some people would say those are general officers or admiral equivalents on the civilian side. That's a way to look at it. So I applied for an SES job that I just knew I wasn't going to get. I absolutely know I wasn't going to get, but I checked that box. My mentor said, go do it. Well, I got the job. And here's the thing. So that was managing engineers, which I was not. You know, I was a political scientist. You know, managing engineers, program managers, which I was not. But I knew how to bring it all together and solve problems. You know, and that critical thinking was what they needed in that position. And so I did that. I pinged off my mentors again, said, hey, I think you need to go diversify again. So I became the CIO for the Naval Sea Systems Command. All of this is in the Naval Sea Systems Command, the Navy's largest acquisition and engineering organization. Eventually pinged all around and became the top civilian for the 53,000 people, the 50, I forget how many millions, billions of dollars it was at the time. But so I became, you know, the person in that corner office, you know, overseeing all of it. I got there because of that diversification and just proving that any job that I had, I would take on, I could do it. So it wasn't tied to my degree. That ties into consulting, because when it came time for me to retire, or I decided to retire, you know, I came in as a consultant working multiple projects. The attraction, I think, for the company was just that. Well, she's done this, she's done that, she's done this. So even though I wasn't technically trained, the skills are transferable, you know, and so I got brought in. Then I fleeted up to oversee a group of about 80 engineers, contracts, program managers. And now I'm leading all of the consultants in this piece of Circa North America. But I'm convinced that you leverage all the talents and experiences that you have. You don't empower them because you don't have that experience. You leverage what you have, and then you'll be amazed at where else you can take it and just grow with that. So like everybody else, kind of went zing, 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 zing. You know?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to stick with you for a second, and then we're going to go back down. But obviously, we have a lot of students on the line here who are currently, you know, in a business major in a variety of areas. And what they're looking for is, what makes me the most competitive for getting into this field, right? Are there classes that I should be taking? Are there certifications? And then if we could get a little bit into the personality traits that make, you know, people a good fit for those types of jobs. So go ahead, Sherry, we'll start with you.
Oh, no, well, let me unpack that. That was a lot in a question there, right? So I think as far as courses to take, there's a multitude of courses out there. And again, I'm not sure that really matters, but to single on a couple of things, you know, if you look at fast forward to where the world may be going, you know, follow the puck, where the puck is going, technology. I mean, technology, but you don't have to be the technologist, right? You don't have to be the AI ML person. You need to understand how technology can enable critical thinking, right? And sometimes it's not the tool itself. Let somebody else do that, you know, but it's, hey, we have a way that we can make data work for you, you know, and I think so that is a way. certainly business, if you're in business, just understanding, whether it's the federal public sector, they too have budgets, and they just don't make a profit off of it, but they have to manage those budgets very tightly. They report to Congress on how they're doing, and some, a lot of the programs are highly politically charged. So business is always good. And certainly if you're in a P&L, profit and loss company, and even nonprofits, that whole business, how does it all glue together? And you heard that from the other panelists. It all has to glue together to be successful. And then to the softer side, and what does it take? I think active listening, and I have to tell you, that is hard for me personally. I'm a little bit on the energetic side, and I want to just get in there, but active listening, and hearing what, either your colleagues or your customers are thinking. Really hear, because, you don't want to then assume that, because you've already moved on to how you're going to respond. So I think critical thinking cannot be, foot stomped enough with a trait that you should start working on now, if that's not a strong suit for you. But I keep saying this word, critical thinking is key. Because if you're a consultant, at the end of the day, in its purest form, I believe, and this is just my opinion, they're hiring you to think, even at entry levels. So if you're an entry level coming into a consultant firm, you're going to have to be able to lean forward, lean in, be a self-starter, and don't be intimidated by saying, what, I think this is what we should do. And so I think the critical thinking, the active listening are two key elements, and then just communication. Being able to say what you're thinking in a way that it can be received, and that will vary from different people. So if for us as a consultant, you don't want to go into a customer and then all of a sudden they're just kind of going like, oh, you're killing me. So being succinct in delivering your message and whatnot. So there's lots of different skill sets, but if I was to bucket them in three big buckets, I think that would be it. Critical thinking, I have one more, and I'm sorry, and then I will relinquish the floor, understanding how data can help you, active listening, communications, and then, believe it or not, and this one tripped me up, just project and time management. Because you're pretty much going to be on your own at a very early start in your career on getting things done. They're going to hire you, and because they hired you because you were smart and energetic and everything else, and being able to manage your time and get things done on time is going to be critical. And that sounds so simple, and it's really hard to do. So with that, I'll stop and hear other words of wisdom.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And I want to also reiterate for all the students on the line is that you guys have free access to LinkedIn Learning. So everything that Sherry just mentioned, active listening, critical thinking, being a self-starter, taking initiative, communication, project time management, those are all topics. Those are courses that you can take on LinkedIn Learning, which again, you have that free access to as long as you're a student. So definitely look into that. So we're going to move on to Nomi. And again, just to recap, the topic is any classes, any specific certifications, and personality traits.
So for HR, all those suggestions that Sherry gave her, I think are great and didn't overlap with any I had. So that's kind of fun. So human capital classes, if there are any, basic business classes, psychology classes, and strategy classes were the ones that I had thought about. As far as certifications, there really, I don't believe are any certifications to get in HR until you have HR experience. But joining your local SHRM chapter, the Society of Human Resource Management, is a great way to get access to resources and mentors and information, and then get yourself set up so that when you are ready to take certifications, if you go that route, they're readily available. That's gonna pass.
Perfect. And I've heard it now twice from both Sherry and Nomi, that mentorship piece. finding a mentor. We do have an organization called Mason Mentors. I invite all of our panelists to join. It's a very kind of informal setting where it's not like it's a year-long commitment where we sign a contract or anything like that, but it's almost like a LinkedIn for George Mason, alumni, students. And I do see a question here. Can Nomi repeat her answer? So really quick, if you want to recap, I heard human capital, psychology, strategy, and there was another course you mentioned in there.
Basic business.
Basic business. And then also we talked about joining SHRM, SHRM to find mentors and the kind of a plethora of resources there. And any certifications, usually in the HR field, do require some hours already put in before you can apply for those certifications. Is that correct? Okay. There's the summary. All right, Mitchell, take it away.
Yeah, thanks. In terms of like classes or certifications, what I can say about that is like if you're gonna have a career in an office setting, you got to know how to use Microsoft Office. It's really important, right? I mean, everybody knows how to open a Word document and bold and underline, but I'm talking about the more kind of advanced level aspects. Know what a difference between a page break and a section break is, know how to use style sheets, right? And the style gallery and all that kind of stuff, and set those settings. Right? That's going to be really important. And then, really, use when you're looking, everybody has a different financial situation, right? So, but, I guess as a blanket kind of piece of advice, right? Don't look at your first position as a position to like really make a lot of money and a big salary, right? You look at it as a foot in the door, because there'll be a lot of opportunity in the future for you to kind of grow your compensation and your salary. But again, everybody does have a different financial situation, but use your personal network, right? We have this one person, she's great. We hired her from Mason, I think 3 years ago she graduated, and she was our VP's younger brother's friend. We gave her a chance and she like just blew us away. And now she's, after 3 years with us, she's a program manager. She's managing like 12 people and across 3 different programs. Right. So take those opportunities where you can get it, and don't just go for the company that's going to pay you the most. Right. Go for the company that you have some sort of connection with, that you feel a connection with, and then really try to work hard. Like don't be intimidated by the leadership of the company. Right. Feel free to go up to the CEO and say, I love what you're doing, and I have a couple thoughts. Right. They're not gonna get mad at you for approaching them. They'll actually be pretty impressed that you had the nerve to approach the leadership directly like that, right? I mean, obviously you don't want to bug them, extensively, but if you have a good idea, like don't be scared to share that idea or share your thoughts on how to improve things.
Which kind of goes back to what Sherry was saying too, that showing that initiative and being a self-starter, speaking to the CEO, like you said. And Nicole, I saw you nodding along with a lot of this, so feel free to fill us in here.
I was going to say just ditto, 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 ditto.
Yeah.
In terms of, so I'll do the 3 parts of the question, if you will. In terms of courses, I completely agree. I mean, it sounds like Nomi and I are the HR folks primarily in this panel, and I think her course is basic business. I don't think you can ever go wrong taking a basic business course. If you're going to work in the US kind of thing, if you're going to work in America, whether it's nonprofit, I come from nonprofit, and it's helpful to have a business awareness. And especially, I think if you're doing a for-profit, so you understand what is driving folks, because sometimes people don't understand, well, why are we doing this? They might ask leadership, and the answer is the bottom line. And if you understand what goes into the bottom line and what comes out of it, you can kind of wrap your head around business decisions a little bit easier. Psychology, I have a psychology degree. I think it's always helpful. People ask, granted, I did psychology so many years ago that I probably I don't remember any of it, to be honest, what I learned. So whether I use it in my day to day, no idea. Definitely not the theories and everything I learned, but how to be a listener, how to be empathetic. Those are more of the personality traits that you mentioned, Kelly, is wanting to know. To be in HR, You have to be, you know, empathetic, compassionate, as well as the thing that popped into my head is confidentiality. HR, you have to know how to uh, keep confidential information that's handed to you, but also know business because we are HR business partners usually. And so we are involved with business decisions, terminations, recruitment, all of that, along with, I mean, when you're an HR generalist like I am, you're kind of doing a little bit of everything. So learning how to work with people. I'm an introvert but I'm still in HR. So you don't have to be an extrovert. I will say that to work in HR, but you do have to like people. That is helpful. In terms of certifications, uh, exactly what Nomi said. I'm actually at a SHRM training right now. I'm at the NOVA, the chapter, Northern Virginia chapter, SHRM Legal Academy. I just stepped out and am here now, and it's awesome. And there are student levels of membership for national SHRM and regional or state SHRM chapters that are less expensive if you are a student, and they're fabulous for mentoring, fabulous for networking, for taking trainings, for having those opportunities. And I think, again, the mentoring is so important. And so is networking and just seeing what's out there.
Sure. I love that too, bringing up that psychology background and not only the active listening, but the ability to work with people of all different personalities. My background's in psychology too. So of course I'm relating a lot to that.
And conflict resolution in HR,
yes,
conflict
right?
resolution comes in handy.
Right. And I think one of the things that I'm sure you can all relate to, but that conflict resolution comes up in any role. Like if I am working at Dairy Queen, if I am working at Target, no matter where, you're going to have the angry customer. And are you the person, the go-to person who can calm this person down, right? And use that language and stuff. So it's really great to hear that a lot of those that we pick up in more of these entry-level positions are used kind of for life. So one of the questions that just came up, can you ask Nicole what kind of personality you need to have for that type of HR job?
What kind of personality for an HR job? Mm-hmm. I think, honestly, the first thing that popped in my head was enthusiasm. You have to love what you do. That I think it's true anywhere you work, you want to love what you do. To work in HR, I think it's a necessity because you are supporting the human resources of a team. You are literally supporting the most critical asset of an organization typically. And to do that, you have to want to be there. You have to want to support the folks on your team. You also have to be willing to learn because let me tell you, HR changes. I mean, I just went to training and they're like, so between January and today, here are all the changes. I'm like, oh my God. So things change in HR. You have to be a quick adapter and quick to learn and enthusiastic to learn. Like I said, the empathy, it doesn't have to be sympathy. You don't want to pity people, but you have to have empathy. You have to understand where they're coming from and be able to support them. And the one that might be surprising is analytical. So to really think HR is a lot of people skills, right? Like the conflict resolution, enthusiasm. You want to be, nice, kind of, you want people to trust you and everything. But you also have to be analytical because you are often looking at what can I improve? What processes can I make more efficient? How can I make this more effective? You might get called in to handle a difficult situation or to make a difficult decision. So being able to look at data and facts and really analyze them and come back with a solution. I always tell people that I work with, don't give me a problem, give me a solution. Mm-hmm. Don't tell me the challenge, tell me how we're going to fix it. Mm-hmm. And I think my president who I was working with actually said that to me because I must have given him a problem and not a solution. I didn't even realize I was doing it. But I mean, that's one thing that will really make you stand out, just as a side tidbit, make you stand out to leadership is if you go in, you can state, Houston, we have a problem, but then here's what I recommend we do to fix it, or here's what I already did to fix it even better.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Or like what I tell my children, and how would you solve this problem that you've just brought up? I love that. And then Nomini, did you have something to weigh into on the HR kind of personality traits?
I did. So HR careers are really interesting because you can be a total introvert and thrive in HR, and you can be a total extrovert and thrive. And I'm sorry, my dog wants to join us. So for introverts, you can do compensation, benefits, HRIS, all that analytical stuff is so necessary. If you're an extrovert, there's employee relations, talent acquisition. Being a generalist kind of gives a balance of both. Some of the benefits can lean towards more of that extroversion side if you're doing more of the training of it. And then training in itself is both introvert or extrovert, depending on how you take the career. So if you're more of an introvert and you're interested in training, then you can do instructional design or learning management system management, which kind of piggybacks into that HRIS, but still tends to be a little bit different. If you're an extrovert and you like training, you can go and become a facilitator. So HR careers really have such a gamut of personalities of whether you're that introvert, extrovert, and different personality types. So I agree with all of the things that last speaker just shared. But you really can, HR can go in either of those personality directions.
I love that, because one of the questions that popped up was from one of our MIS majors, our management information systems people. And they said, is there a role in HR for me? Obviously, yes. From what you just said, absolutely.
Yeah, so we have 2 people on our team that are totally focused just on the HRIS systems. One is all general HRIS systems, and the other person is focused on the LMS system.
Gotcha. Perfect. Well, this is also a question for any of our panelists. I know that this is so much fun, right? And time flies when you're having fun. I can see that we are down to the wire here. And I do want to get to some of the questions that we didn't get answered yet. However, as a student, of course, if we're looking to get into the industry, we've kind of covered personality traits, maybe some classes, maybe some certifications I should be looking at. But let's talk about internships and study abroad. And what are those entry-level positions that maybe I should be focusing on in terms of job titles and what's going to set me up? Or, as many of us discovered, how do we figure out if this is our passion or not? What are those jobs that I could take to see, is this the good fit for me or not? Anybody want to take that one away to start? Know me? Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I talked to a lot of college students. It's a favorite population of mine. And I'm very often surprised that so many college students think that the way to start is as a generalist. And the truth is, in HR, it's just the opposite, because to be a generalist, you really need to have a lot of information about a lot of different topics in HR. It's such a broad field. So that for looking at job titles, I recommend looking for the job title of coordinator as a starting point, because that's going to give you, in many cases, more of the entry-level coordination of activities, and then you'll learn about that activity, and then there's a very easy path to go from there. And any single aspect of HR, whether it's employee relations or recruiting or literally any aspect, has a starting point. And so looking at that coordinator title is an easy go-to place. Perfect. And I know Sherry also wanted to say something, so.
Okay.
I would just add, yeah, I don't know that I would focus on the title as so much as the responsibility, but before I go there, just internships or study abroad, absolutely. Absolutely. And why? It may not be for the reason that you think. You know, like I know Serco gets a lot of applications, you know, for people coming out of college. And so you want to have that discriminator. You know, and so what is that discriminator? Maybe you studied abroad, which, you know, would instantly kind of tell me, and I'll yield to my HR colleagues to actually say, well, I'm not so sure, but it tells me that you can adapt. You're adaptive in another environment that is not where, maybe out of your comfort zone completely. You may not know anybody, but you were still successful studying abroad, right? So I think that's an element. Internships. Yeah, the company's going to get to see what you could do, and you're going to do everything that you've heard on this panel, no doubt. Yeah, I want to flip that and say the other value proposition in interns, you get to interview, if you will, the company, right? And you may find, that's a risk-free almost step to take that says, hey, I really thought I wanted to do this, but after doing it for several months, I don't ever want to do that. Or, I don't like that company. They just grind people to death. There's so much that you can learn that will help you, and so the first part is do something that will make you have a differentiator, a discriminator against everyone else out there about the same time you're graduating. So are they, trying to hit the job market. So yeah, do something, that is in those elements. But also remember, there's a value in there for you as well.
I love that, and I have lived that. I got halfway through my practicum for becoming a therapist, and when my advisor asked me how it was going, I said I want to be a park ranger. So you're right. It is definitely what we learn we do want to do and what we don't want to do. Other folks, Mitchell, do you want to weigh in on this one?
Yeah, like I was saying before, to me, it's like it's all about getting your foot in the door, right? And however you need to do that, like really work hard to do that. And then once you're in there, coming out of college, obviously you guys don't have a ton of experience, but my advice would be to kind of don't use that as a negative, but just use it as make that known that you're here to learn, that you're going to do whatever it takes to grow and help the company grow itself, and just speaking to getting your foot in the door, right? Don't be scared to kind of be a little persistent, right? Because just as Sherry was saying, like we get a ton of applicants too. But a lot of times it's those ones that just keep following up with us, right? That politely pester us, as I like to say, right? Those are the ones, the squeaky wheel always gets the grease, right? So we always take another special look at those ones that are a little bit more persistent.
Perfect. Yeah. So that internship experience, that additional classes, the study abroad, anything that we can do to kind of set ourselves apart from the competition. We had a panel last semester. It was a marketing panel, and they were talking about what would be those traits. And there was a person who couldn't tell the difference between two people, they were looking at for internships, and they went with somebody who had been the waitress because they had been a waitress and they knew what that skill set was that was required. We're talking about that adaptability, that conflict management, those life skills that are going to be handy in any role. So we are down to our last 7 minutes. Can you guys believe it? I am looking through the questions. I do want to ask this of each of you so you have a chance to weigh in. What typical challenges do you normally face in your daily activities at your workplace, and how do you solve it? And anybody can weigh in on this one.
I'll jump in. So one of the things that I love about this job that I'm in, and this is the first time I've ever said this in my career, is that I have no drama in my job. Like, yes, every job has politics, every job has stress. I mean, those are given, but there's something about, I've worked for plenty of companies where they thrive in a drama environment, and I am in drama-free zone and I love it. But the challenge that I face is because so much of my efforts are very time sensitive. If an employee relations issue comes up, you can't get to it when it fits in. You got to do it. If you have a hot candidate that you don't want to lose, you've got to act quickly and make sure you get the interview done and get them through the process before someone else snaps them up. So the challenge that I have is non-responsive managers that aren't feeling the same sense of urgency that I have. And so it's managing the managers that are in the work that want you to do what they've asked you to do, hire the position, help them with an employee relations issue, whatever it is, but then they need to be managed properly in order to get the results that you want. So that would be my challenge.
Perfect. Anyone else?
I would say a challenge, it's not an HR challenge, to be honest. I think it's a work challenge, is competing priorities. So everything is important. Everything can, especially if it's coming from multiple people and in their world, it is the important thing, the most important thing. And so suddenly you have a list of 9 fire drills on your desk, And I've been joking that the past couple of weeks, I have my to-do lists and nothing on my to-do lists get done. And I'm like, what the hell have I, excuse me, what the heck have I been doing all day? Like, I'm working. I've just put 10 hours in. What have I done? And I look at my to-do list and I feel like an utter failure. So it's a two-part thing. One, competing priorities, and two, perfectionism and not being a perfectionist, because that's really hard for me. That's a challenge I face, is I want to be perfect. I want to get everything done. I want my to-do list all nice and neat and wrapped in a bow and crossed off. And that's not reality. That's just not the world we live in. So understanding how to prioritize, how to work with others to help prioritize, to really understand what's going to fall apart unless I do it right now. What can I push? What can I focus on in the future? And also giving yourself some grace, I think is a very difficult thing to do in our society, especially in my experience as a woman, because I have to work extra hard, again, in my experience, to do the same thing or to be recognized the same way. And so letting myself have a work-life balance is also hard, but important.
Right. Absolutely.
And I'll take agree with them, all of that. Little bit different spin from the consulting side, and what we face is, and then I'll just touch on work-life balance very quickly. Is and if you tie in all the skills that we talked about that I believe are underpin success in this space, is to be able, particularly if you're dealing with the federal government and you're being paid to think, and you just fundamentally say, that will not work. And you've got the data to prove it. You've got the analytics behind it. It will not work. They're your customer, and that art form, that communication skills of actively listening to be able to walk them through with the data-driven decision element, to get them to say that won't work. But here's what makes the challenge. At the end of the day, if they say, I'm telling you, this is what we're going to do, then by golly, you're going to go do it. And then, and you're not going to say, I told you so, I mean, that, and that can be very, very frustrating when you have everything that's supporting that. That's probably not going to get you the outcome that you want. But at the end of the day, you go do it. I will tell you the other challenge, and it's time management. And that's what everyone else had said, but it's time management in post-COVID, because chances are you're going to be working at home, and I get caught up all the time. You put in your 10, 11 hour days, sometimes 12. We never got to is it a 9-to-5 job? No, it is not a 9-to-5 job. And then you say, well, I'm just going to slide across the floor. I'm just going to do this one thing. That's all I'm going to do. It'll take me 45 seconds. And then an hour and a half later, you're still there. And then boom, somebody sees it. Your light is green. The kiss of death. Your light is green. And then there you are. And now you're 3 more hours into what you thought was going to be a 45-second response. So that work-life balance and finding it, particularly in post-COVID, when it's either a hybrid workplace or virtual workplace, that is just hard. It's hard. So thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I hope you guys are paying attention, because this advice and guidance is really gold. I mean, you guys are giving some great advice. What I could say is, and I'm working on this myself personally, is try not to get too upset or too emotional about things that perhaps don't go your way or don't turn out the way you like it. Years ago, I asked one of my employees to kind of put together a presentation, and it didn't turn out exactly the way that I wanted it to, and it didn't really meet up my expectations. And I kind of berated her a little bit in front of other people. And, I don't know why I did that. Maybe to make myself feel a little bit more powerful. I don't know, but I reflect on that often as a real kind of point in my career where I didn't do the best thing. So, it's really hard not to get upset at work things, because you put all, your blood, sweat, and tears into some things, and it doesn't turn out the way you wanted, or decision doesn't go your way. But, try not to at least outwardly show that you're too upset about it. Just keep that professional kind of tempo and temperament.
And Mitchell, I bet what you didn't add was, and learn from it. Right?
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely
learn from it. Turn it into a positive and learn from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was a perfect ending. It is 5 o'clock. I cannot thank our panelists enough. I do want to let other question has come up a few times. Yes, this was recorded. Yes, we will send out the recording to all of you. Also, too, if our panelists don't mind letting us know if students have follow-up questions that we didn't get to or they thought of afterwards, if they could get in contact with you, whether that's LinkedIn or email, just let us know what's best, and we'll do our best to make that connection there. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you to our students who were plentiful and they had really good questions. So I just really appreciate it. And that would conclude our professional quest. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
so much.
All right.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
We're out here. Thank you.